Welcome back to Picking Up the Pieces. In our last episode, we explored marriage therapy and how couples can strengthen their relationship. Today, we are shifting focus. We are specifically speaking today about children who live in two homes because of separation or divorce. More and more, children today are growing up in families divided by separation and divorce. These children may live in two homes, but they only have one childhood. It is essential that parents work together to make sure their children feel safe, supported, and able to enjoy the one precious childhood that they have. In this episode, we are urging parents to take the long view, to think deeply about how to parent well when children are moving between two homes. I'm really excited to introduce Rebecca Skippen, an incredible child therapist on our team. While she works broadly with couples and families, she has a very, very special gift when it comes to connecting with children. Her work supporting kids from separated families has been exceptional. Rebecca works every single day with children who are living in two homes after separation and divorce. She has a deep, firsthand understanding of what these kids are going through, not just in theory, but in real everyday life, and sees the challenges they face. That is why I am so excited to have her here today to share her insights. Today, we are going to dive deep and discuss how we can best support children who are growing up in two homes. Welcome, Rebecca.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
So tell me, what are some of the most common emotional challenges that children face when they are living in two homes?
So I see a lot of the children feeling torn, right? Torn between two different homes. The feeling of having to choose sides sometimes for both of their parents. They worry a lot. There's some anxieties or some worries about sharing certain things with their parents. Say they enjoy, a time out with their parent. Sometimes they minimize that with the other parent, and they're not able to express how fun it was or how much they enjoyed it. And so there's a lot of worries and anxieties that come with kids living in two different homes, and even parents that have a great relationship. There still is those extra worries that children from separated homes don't necessarily go through or have to deal with. So there is an extra layer for kids that have separated parents.
Yeah. And tell me a little bit about how children express themselves when they're feeling torn between the two homes.
Yeah, so we see a lot. I mean, it really does depend on the child, but a lot of common, we see it come out physically more than, and emotionally, because they're not always able to articulate with their words what they're feeling. So it often comes out in, stomach aches or worries, not wanting to go to school, not wanting to do certain activities that they used to love. It comes out in anger outbursts, big emotional kind of eruptions that we're seeing. Sometimes they're sad for no reason. Their mood kind of changes. So we see a lot of different kind of physiological things happening for kids when they're kind of feeling that anxious and that worried feeling.
Okay. I want to talk about parents for a minute. I have worked with parents for the entirety of my career. And one thing I know about parents is that they have two different parenting styles. So, what happens when you have two completely different parenting styles and children are moving between the homes? How does that impact children?
Yeah, of course. And that happens most often, right? There's never going to be two parents the exact same, and that's completely okay. Parents don't have to be the same. They're two different people. They were raised differently. They have their own values and morals, and that's okay. Children are adaptable. They're flexible. They're resilient. They'll be okay to adapt. I often see that does impact children is when there are parents are saying certain things about the other parent's style or their rules or things that they do that the other parent may not do, right? And so that makes the child feel torn when
They
they're
argue over parenting styles, right?
yeah, or
And
even the comments, right? Like little kind of comments about certain things that the parent does. It makes the child feel uncomfortable when they hear that.
there's always like a parent who is more stricter, more rigid. And there's always a parent who's a little bit more compassionate and nurturing and allows the child to kind of not run the show, but have more, freedom, and that really causes a conflict. What do you see that when you work with parents?
Absolutely. I see it a lot. And it's kids eventually, they do adjust and adapt to that regardless. But for parents, if they're especially at the beginning of a separation, it's a big adjustment for everybody. And what I always suggest to parents is try and work on the kind of non-negotiables. The certain things that they can really agree on, a timeline for a bedtime. What screen time looks like. That's a big thing right now, right? So certain things that are similar in both homes, and then those other smaller things aren't that big of a deal, right? Or kind of exactly when they brush their teeth. Those things aren't as crucial as, a structure of a bedtime, a structure of, what homework looks like, when homework is done, what extracurriculars look like. So kind of if parents can just agree on some of the basics, then those
Mhm.
other things kids are able to adapt easily and be free and be a child.
Because children don't really need their parents to be the same. Like they know that their parents are different, and they know that their parents are going to treat them differently, right? So that happened when they lived together as an intact family, right? So that's obviously going to happen in their two different homes. So they're used to their parents being different, right?
Absolutely. And they will adjust to it. They absolutely will adjust to it.
And I also think children can benefit from parents having different parenting styles because they need a variety, right? They don't always need the same thing.
Exactly.
But I hear what you're saying, because definitely one of the key things that is so critical to children who live in two homes is to have consistency, structure, and routine. It doesn't have to be perfect, right? But tell us a little bit about how that can really help children in two homes, and tell us about how parents can go about doing that.
Yeah, it makes them feel safe, right? Like predictability, it creates safety for children. And because they are adjusting to two different homes and their parents being separated, that is a lot of change for them. So if parents can do these small little changes that really help their kid just feel safer and just feel like they kind of know roughly what the routine is going to look like, right? And so, like, if families have a shared calendar and parents can kind of work on that together so the kid knows what the month is going to look like, what the week, what the day's going to look like, who are doing pickups and drop offs, and, what extracurriculars are happening that week, who's, connecting or going to certain school events, are both going. So just having the child kind of know what's happening, having that communication with them is really important. And parents being able to figure that out without involving the child, right? That is the parent's job to try and structure that and figure that out for their child so that their child isn't caught in the middle of that. And so I think communication, as hard as it may be sometimes for parents, it is so crucial for children to thrive, where they can put their differences aside, the parents, and be able to really focus on the child's best interest, their needs, what do they need, how to just make them feel more comfortable in both homes.
I agree with everything you said. And I'm just thinking, I always think when I talk to you, you're such a good therapist, and I value your insights. And so, what I'm thinking about is successful outcomes, because when I've seen your work, I see you have so many positive experiences with families who are living in two homes. Can you tell me about some of these positive outcomes? Because everyone thinks it's kind of bleak a little bit when parents separate and get divorced, and there's so much stress on children. But we need to remind ourselves there are a lot of successful outcomes, and I want you to share some of them with us today.
Of course, yeah, I love to look at things at a strength base as well, right? Or not even a negative aspect, right? Like there can be some neutral spaces in that, and I see kids be able to be more resilient, be more flexible, right? They learn how to be loved in two different homes. I know some children that they really wanted siblings. They were an only child, and then their parents, they separated, and they had a step parent and step siblings, and they love to have step siblings. So
Mhm.
it added more people to love them in life. And it's not kids don't need their parents to be together. They need to be loved, right? And they can be loved in two different homes, and with step parents and step siblings, there can be love all around. They just can't feel that tension and that stress that sometimes comes with family dynamics.
Love and protection is everything. And I completely agree with you. It's not the separation that harms the child, it's not the divorce, it's not the two homes. It's the arguing, the conflict, and the resentment that goes between the parents. And that really doesn't have a lot to do with the child. So I want parents to know that that separating, although it can be sad and a significant loss in the children's lives, and children who have to live between two homes on some sort of parenting schedule, it's not as disappointing or as bleak as it seems like. It's the conflict that really shatters a kid's well-being and their spirit.
Absolutely. It really is. And a lot of kids do feel they're caught in that, right? And it doesn't necessarily have to be big gestures of conflict, right? It can be they can feel tension even, right? Like the pickup and drop-offs, like they can feel that their parents are tense, right? And that there's unresolved things. And so I always try and encourage parents like try and deal with that unresolved feelings. I they are human, right? And they're allowed to have emotions, but try and process that as much as possible. I suggest a lot of parents to have individual therapy so they can really work on that and find some tools for themselves so that they can help transfer to their children so their children can have a secure attachment. They can see that parents, they went through something tough and they didn't get along, but they were able to work through it. They were able to get to a place of communication. They were able to get to a place that they can go to the same school show and they don't have to sit beside each other, but they can be in the same room and they can be supported by both parents at the end of the day. That's really what we want.
And just wanting to talk more about how can we support these children, and if you can go through like each age and stage of development, how can we support them through the transitions between the two homes? What can we do? What can parents do?
Yeah, absolutely. And it does look different for different ages, right? So a younger age, I mean, there is a lot less understanding of the situation that's happening. So for young children, it just kind of feels like it's happening to them. And there's not really a lot of sense of control. For all kids, it doesn't feel like there's a sense of control in it, right? And so I always suggest to parents try and communicate with your children at all ages. They do have feelings, they have something to say, they need to feel heard and understood. And validation, it doesn't always solve every problem that we have. Some situations are unsolvable, but the feeling when we feel someone understands what we're saying. I mean, even adults, we like to be validated, right? So children love to feel heard and validated. That is so important for parents to sit down, ask them how they're doing, how they feel about the transition. Is there anything they need differently from their parent? Is there something that could make them just feel a little bit more at ease, right? With the situation. Say a child is, moved to a new home and it's, one home they're more comfortable in because
Mhm.
that's the home they were raised in. Then, that new home, they are going to feel a little uncomfortable at the beginning. And then you can get creative and parents can, get them excited to decorate a room, make it feel like it's their home, that they have two different homes. Both aren't just a place they visit. It's actually a home for both of them and they can feel safe and comfortable even if those are different. They still feel like both of their spaces. I think there's listening to children is really important. They do have a lot to say.
I'm going to lean on to two things that you just said. And the first one is validation, right? Children need to be validated. And let's go back to that age and stage of development in the transition. So when you have a really young baby, like, or an infant who is transitioning between the homes and they're leaving their mom's home and going to spend time with the dad, what do you see and how do you help that young child, that infant, cope at that stage of development? Because naturally, you're going to see a little bit of signs of separation anxiety and distress. So, can you explain that and give some advice to parents out there?
Yeah, absolutely. And there will be dysregulation, right? Because children, they want attachment to both parents, and that's all they've ever known. And so, for all children, but especially young children, when they just can't really formulate what's happening for them yet or understand it, yeah, we see the dysregulation, and it's parents have to be able to soothe that child, right? They have to be able to reassure them. One thing that is I say over and over to my parents that I work with is, don't expect the child to forget the other parent when they're with you. They have two parents all of the time, and they need both of those parents all of the time. We can't expect our kids to to not want to maybe call them or see them or how to have a video call. So they need to see that other parent, even hear their voice, right? And so for a young child, there may be signs of dysregulation, even if you can just help them see that parent for a little bit and soothe them and comfort them. Try and do an activity that they used to love with that parent. So try not to separate their lives, because they have two parents that they need love and comfort from both of them, even when they are with one parent. It's not about them not loving that one parent. They do need both. They need both. So I would always suggest, like, try your very best to work with that parent to meet that child's needs and their emotional needs.
I'm going to highlight and emphasize a statement you just said, that don't have your child forget the other parent, right? That is such good advice. Right? And what happens? Like that happens where parents want totally like parallel lives with the child, and they're like, when you are at my home, this is my parenting time, right? And that's the way it's going to go, but a child can't adapt that way, right? They just can't be like, okay, I'm at dad, so mom is not really a part of this week of my life, right?
Yeah. And
That
sometimes they feel they can't even talk about that other parent, right? And that causes stress and anxiety, because there may be some good moments or some memories or their favorite shows on TV that they watch with mom, and they have to be able to express that, right? Like that parent is still present in their lives. So it does cause a lot of stress for them. It really does.
I find that happens a lot on like an alternating week schedule. Although I do think that's a good schedule and that has so many benefits for children, I just feel like sometimes during that week, they're kind of compartmentalizing and meant to forget one of their parents. And then they hop towards the other house in the other week. And then that other parent gets kind of left behind. And I find that could be a little bit complex for children in some cases, right? Where they just want both of their parents in their childhood, at pivotal stages or important moments in their week or in their life in its entirety.
Absolutely. And all children at all stages, right? I see, and as much as I know that there is a lot that comes with separation, and sometimes it is very complex, right? And parents don't have the capacity to be able to feel that they can share that, but they have to do their very best to try and share that child and be able to allow them to see both parents. I try and suggest to parents, like, if you live close enough, a lot of families do try and live, in a 10-15 minute, like, homes from each other. And so that, if it is that one week, I mean, they can just kind of stop by and see that one parent. Even if it's after school, they have a quick, hi, how are you? A little hug, something that they just see that parent. It makes them feel more regulated, right? They don't feel that anxiousness of not seeing that other parent. And I know some parents, I mean, that can be really difficult for a parent to allow that to happen, but it's really important to focus again on the child and their needs. And they thrive better when they can see both parents. It doesn't have to be that strict schedule, right? Of
Mhm.
that only can see that parent on that time. They can, even if it's a video call or a FaceTime, or if it's a young child that doesn't have a phone, try try to video call with your phone and let the child just see the mom or dad's face for a few minutes and hear their voice. It really, it does go a long way.
And I want to mention that whatever Rebecca and I are talking about, we totally understand that not all families fit into the framework that we're talking about. And we're going to be talking about all different family dynamics, some more complex, some that have experienced domestic violence. But right now, we're just going to focus on children living in two homes and separation and divorce and going back and forth and raising a child in two homes. And I'm going to, again, piggyback on your statement saying that don't forget the child has another parent. And I'm going to emphasize that more and say, as parents, you should really allow your child at all ages and stages of development to miss their other parent, because it's okay when, for example, a young infant transitions from home to home and has some tears. It's okay to empathize with them and say, I know you really miss your mom. I'm sorry, but we are going to have a wonderful, wonderful time. Right. And we are going to have, a wonderful home or whatever it is, but they are allowed to miss their mom and they are allowed to miss their dad, because that is hard in separation and divorce. They are going back and forth, and there is time that they're spending without the other parent who they really love deeply and miss.
Absolutely.
Right? So we got to give them permission. So that's validating. And that's also listening, right? We have to listen to our kids and their feelings, and we can't dismiss them because it disrupts our own kind of ego or parenting role. We have to listen to them. But I know it's really painful for parents when they're with a child and they see that their child isn't regulating with them and misses the other parent.
Yeah, it can be triggering, right? It can bring up a lot for them, and that's why, I mean, again, like I said, parents are humans and they do have to be able to process that and try and work through that in any way that they can, right? But no, that can long-term impact the child if they're not able to use some of the tools that they need to regulate themselves and be able to co-regulate their child.
And I also find in separation and divorce, it's such a busy time for parents, and they're just like kind of in the like heat of everything, that they often sometimes are so focused on their children and what to do and their schedules and everything that they have to do in their life, they forget that they need to heal and seek their own individual therapy, not always for parenting guidance, but for healing and for getting their strength back, getting them to a stage where they feel healthy enough to let go of some of the anger, let go of some of the resentment, and move forward.
Exactly. The worst thing that we can do is try and punish that other parent because it punishes the children. They suffer from it.
And you know what happens for those parents also who have children going back and forth between the two homes is when the parent is not with their children, that is the time where they should use that time to restore their energy, restore themselves. So then when the child comes to them, they're getting the very best part of them. And could you imagine always giving your child like the very best part of you? Like that would be, I mean, I know that's totally hard to do, but actually, separated parents get a better opportunity to do that because they can relax, they can heal, and they can restore and just give their child that good positive energy. They can restore themselves so they have the energy to actually sit on the floor, for example, and play with a young child, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's interesting you say that because it kind of goes back to some of the positives of separation. As I've heard lots of kids say, I have the best version of my parent now. They're
Hmm.
not fighting anymore. There's not conflict. They're not stressed and yelling. They're at peace now. And they can then be the best present parents possible. And so that can be a positive outcome, right? That
Right,
that
right.
they feel that peace. They can just have both parents in their best versions.
Right. Like I'm speaking really honestly with everybody now. I have 3 kids and I don't think I ever feel restored.
Yeah. That's
But,
tough.
that's okay. We just move forward. And so, I still have so much to talk about on this matter and on this really important topic, children being raised in 2 homes. I want to really focus on school age children right now because we're at the time, September, right? And it's a really pivotal time to really think about those school age children who really need to focus on school and their own childhood, learning, writing, arithmetic, reading, and they're right in the middle of their parents' divorce. You must see that every single day.
Every single day I see that, right? And it adds that complexity. It's already a lot for children and they get those jitters, right? Just going back to school, getting back into the routine. There's extracurriculars. There's a lot that happens as of September, right? And for the whole school year. But then there's that layer for kids that have separated homes where they're going to school and they're going back and forth. So one parent's dropping them off and the next parent's picking them up that day. And there's a lot of worries that come with that. They're worried who is going to do the drop off and pick up. What is the parenting schedule if it's the 223? They only have one backpack and one homework to hand in, and sometimes they're forgotten at both houses. There's a lot more organization, and that's where we also often see that lack of communication between parents, right? And then it gets complicated because the child is in the middle of being that communicator for both parents because they're not able to communicate about the backpack or what's needed or what school clothes they need or show and tell, whatever it may be. And then the child, kind of feels that pressure to have to be that communicator. And kids shouldn't have to feel that. They're not, they just need to be as free as possible, right? A child to learn and focus on all those other things. And so we do see a lot of just extra worries and concerns about what is going to happen for their parents, and will they come to the same school employee, who's doing the school
Mhm.
lunches, all of the things that just adds that complexity of worry and concern. And we see it come out in a lot of different ways.
Lunches are a real big hot topic because you have one parent, like, packing this beautiful bento box full of, like, cut up carrots and healthy sandwiches and some cheese and crackers, and you have another parent who might be more busier and is throwing a sandwich in a bag, and that's a point of contention that we've seen over and over again, but children really don't care.
They really
They
don't
don't
care.
care
They will
if
be okay.
don't you agree? Like, they're either gonna get the sandwich or they're gonna get the beautiful bento box, but they're still gonna be okay.
They're okay. They just want to eat it with their friends. Half the time they're trading anyway. They
Right.
will be okay. And it's a few hours at school. They come home and have their snack and dinner anyway.
Like, obviously, I would prefer the bento box, so if someone is making that, if they have that nurturing, very attentive parent who's doing that, pack 2 and send one to Toronto Family Therapy and
We'll
Mediation.
take them.
That's right. That's right. So, going back, I wanna highlight some of the do's and the don'ts for children who are going back to school in living in separated home, and I'm gonna reemphasize a really good do. So, do let your children learn. If your children is in grade 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever grade they are in, let them have a normal school year. They need to focus on them, not the turmoil or the toxicity between their parents. That is the best thing that you can do for them is just let them be a kid.
Let them be a kid and just and try to be present for them, right?
Yeah.
Try to just listen to them, check in with them, and again, deal with those things that are happening for them, right? And deal with the adult stuff, but try and keep the kids out of the adult things that are happening, and not talking about even about the other parent in a negative way. Try and challenge yourself. Talk about them in a positive way, right? Just because you feel a certain way about that parent, the child doesn't feel that way, right? And so as much as you may feel, negatively towards that parent or there's built up frustration, a lot of, emotions come from that. Try and remember that your child loves them and has good memories and moments with them.
So I'm going to give you a do and a don't at the same time. So the do is, well, it's actually, I'll say the don't first. September for separated families brings up a heightened time of conflict. The arguing starts up right in September or even before September as they start the school planning. Here's a huge do. The huge do is let your children start the year off peacefully.
Yes, absolutely. One childhood. One time they start grade 4, grade 5, they only get one time.
One time, right? And so start the year off peacefully. Don't start it off in conflict. Start another do is start it off with predictability. Make sure your children in the two homes has the same visual calendar. That's such a big do. So they know exactly where they're going. They know exactly who's picking them up. And they also know what extracurricular activity they have, who's taking them, because I find that when children don't have that visual aid and they don't have the calendar and they don't know what they're doing from day to day, they get confused, their life becomes chaotic, and that smooth transition between the two homes go right out the window.
Exactly. Yeah. Shared calendar. I'm such a big fan of. I suggest it over and over. I probably repeat myself about it. And it's a simple thing, but it's so helpful, right? It just, and planning ahead, right? Planning the weeks, planning the extracurriculars, just all of the extra things that come with just not just the school, right? There are so many other pieces that come with that. Just try and plan it out so that there's not conflict. There's not the last minute, another parent knows what's happening, right? There has to be that predictability. The child knows who they're going with, where they're going, who's doing what. It makes it so much smoother for them, and they don't have to worry about that conflict. It's so crucial for them to know that.
I'm going to give you another scenario. So let's say, we're freshly divorced. I'm getting freshly divorced, and the school year's starting, and the child is still adjusting because the separation kind of happened over the summer. What information do you share with the school?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a really great question. And I get that a lot, right? Because teachers do need to know what's happening, right? They need to know there was a separation and roughly what that schedule looks like so they know who's picking up, who's dropping off. That's important, but they don't need to know all the details, right? A child needs that privacy, right? But they also the teacher can check in with them. If they know that, parents were recently separated, they're able to check in with them, make sure they're okay, make sure, see if there's any signs of distress or withdraw or, a certain stomach ache on a certain parent dropping off, right? So they can recognize some cues and be able to help the parents and guide them through that, right? But it doesn't have to be all of the details. I think there is that line between just allowing that the teacher to know, to be aware, but making sure that the child and for comfort and for school to be a safe place, right? That's really what the goal is, so that they can be checked on and they can have that teacher support them.
So let's talk about the don'ts right now. So don't overshare with the school because that's personal information, right? Like you don't want to tell the school every single detail about the separation and divorce. And teachers sometimes get caught in that. I speak to teachers all of the time because of the work that I do, and they often become collaterals for children. But really, like, we shouldn't just, overshare and tell the teacher everything. Just give the teacher the calendar, share some basic information, ask the teacher to maybe look out for signs that your child isn't doing well or they're not coping with the transitions between the two homes. But don't overshare.
Yeah, absolutely. And just don't bring the teacher into the parent conflict, right? Like they shouldn't be emailing one parent or the other. Don't put them in that position to have to choose any sides. They need to be a neutral place and a safe space for the child. So parent teachers will send the same email to both parents, the same communication. Don't share those extra things and keep following up with things that aren't related to the child. Keep them out of the conflict.
I totally agree with that. The teachers sometimes get really, they're also put in the middle, right? So we want to have a clear protocol where both parents are copied on emails and the information is shared properly. Because you don't want to put a teacher in the position where a parent may be feeling that they're choosing sides or they have more contact with one parent over the other parent. So I think the school, we're talking about it so much because it's such an integral topic for children who live in two homes because that is a safe place for children. So keep school safe. That's a do. A don't is don't bring the conflict into the child's school because they need that place to be safe and happy and supportive because that's where they're spending every single day.
Absolutely. They're so important. They really are. They're so crucial to just, and these do and don'ts are so important because we see them every day, right? And we see the impact of how just those small changes can really change the dynamic and the feelings for children. I see it every single day, and it's just can be the small little adjustments that just relieve that distress for children.
So, any other do's and don'ts for first children living in two homes and moving back and forth between the two homes, or for children going back to school and living in separated families in two homes? Any more do's and don'ts?
I think I have lots as I've, built them on in the years, but I think the most important thing is do check in with your child, do validate them and communicate with them. Really try and listen to what they need and what they're saying. Kids, they're able to express what they need in a certain way. So observe how your child may be, impacted or might be struggling with something, right? Really try and check in with them, have that communication. Do try and, make sure that you to the best, the parents to the best of their ability are putting their conflict aside and focusing on the best interests of their children. And if that is really challenging, getting a third party co-parenting therapy in some way, if your child is in therapy, talk to that therapist to have that space that they can understand what their child really needs, right? Because we do see a lot of that punishment or parents trying to win, a lot with extracurriculars, right? Where one parent wants them to be really busy in a lot of extracurriculars. One parent, wants to spend that time with them or, doesn't believe they need to be that busy. And so that's bringing the parent conflict into it, right? And there's a lot of reasons why. There's time and there's money and there's a lot of different reasons, but it's really about trying to listen to what the child needs. Do they want to be in a certain sport? And not assuming just because what the child needs aligns with that other parent, it doesn't mean that that parent is influencing that child. It means that child wants to do that activity or really enjoys that, or it brings them relief or happiness, right? And so, when a do is when you feel that there isn't that relationship or ability to work with that parent, get some external help to help be able to navigate that, because it is in the best interest of the child.
I'm going to re-emphasize because you're such a wonderful child therapist. So I state that over and over again. Um, can you tell me a little bit about how you help these children? How you help these children who are going back and forth between the two homes and, you know, in your child therapy sessions, tell us more. What do you do and how do you help them?
Well, I do. I get creative, because, and it, again, depends on the child's needs, but I really try and make it a safe space, a fun, it's engaging. I don't want them to feel like, they come to school and they learn all day and then to come to therapy and feel like they have to sit and listen to an adult on the couch for an hour, right? So I make sure it's fun, it's engaging, but it's play therapy, right? It's a way that we're learning about their emotions in a different way, labeling them with a fun game or some sort of I got creative with sports, and I really take into account what that child's interest is. So I tailor to every single different child. We do something different every time, and it's something they like and enjoy. And some do like to just sit and talk, right? But I really
Mhm.
do try and get flexible, and I try to I really structure and plan ahead of time. So I know what kind of things I want the child to learn in that session or to know or to teach them. I do a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy, a lot of, just tools, a lot of coping tools, a lot of different ways that I get to know them and what would work best for them. And try and make them realistic, because
Mhm.
there's a million different coping skills out there. Right. And I try and work with kids in, for example, I do like a coping book, right? And we do the whole little book and they do it together. They create it, they do a title page, and we add little papers in as we go. And they're different tools and, different ways that they can deal with
Mm.
feelings at home or, deal with big feelings, whatever it may be. It's just little ways to get creative that I
Mm.
can get those tools going. But I also do join the parents in a lot with some of those skills and tools too, so they can help regulate their child at home. A lot of kids, they go home and forget half the tools that we talk about. So I help the parents know these are some of the things, and both parents, right? I'm
Mhm.
just like the teachers. I can easily get caught in that back and forth, right? So I, as much as possible, try and let both parents know what the tools are. Both parents I give the updates to and try and keep that space neutral. And if a child is sharing something that would be helpful for parents, I get their consent. I try and encourage, like, how can we let mom and dad know that this is happening? What can we do about this, right? So, and sometimes I join parents in those sessions for 10, 20 minutes and we talk about some of the things. And so everyone can kind of be able to work together and they can go home and have an idea of what to do with that situation.
Mhm. Oh, and I've seen your coping books and I love your coping
They're
books.
so
They're
cute. I
so
love doing
pretty.
them.
And they are such a good tool for children because children can take what they learn in therapy and bring them home and keep applying and applying and applying.
Yes.
So I really love that therapeutic exercise. I'm just gonna lean on to one more thing that you said, which is that, although you don't sit on the couch and lecture kids for an hour. That's not child therapy. What you do is teach them. They are learning. And I want to remind parents that at every stage of development for children, therapy can be very, very important because children need to learn. They need to learn about family dynamics. They need to learn parents aren't perfect. They need to learn coping skills and emotional regulation. They need to learn, how to conduct themselves in a classroom setting. They need to learn how to organize their life and organize their work. And they just need to learn how to function optimally or be stressed out at times, because that's totally okay. So, children spend like 6 to 8 hours a day learning, math, English, science, drama. What they don't learn is they don't learn about emotions and family dynamics and all of the things that we do every day and we teach the children in therapy. And I just believe how crucial it is for children, because we are helping shape them so they can cope and regulate and have really positive and healthy relationships as adults with their parents, with partners, with, employers or employees, or every relationship they have in life, right? All really important.
Yeah. And emotions are tied into all of those, and it's funny. Every kid I work with, they could vouch for this. If they come in and they want to play a certain game, they're like, I want to do this today. And they know my one rule: as long as there's emotions in it, I'll play bingo. I will play any game, Uno, but there has to be emotions in it, and some kids have got creative with Skittle emotions. And, we just in any way, and they start to create some of the games. They know my only rule is emotions in there, and they find their own way to be creative, and they find games for us to play and things for us to do, and they involve emotions, and it makes them more comfortable talking about emotions. And I talk about my emotions and normalize that we all have different emotions all of the time, and it's okay to have those. And this is how we can express them in a healthy way, and this is what we can do with them. It's really important.
I agree. And I observe children and families firsthand become happier, function better, have better relationships through a therapeutic process. And you lead a good one.
Thank you. You as well.
So I just wanted to thank Rebecca Skippen for coming on to our show. She is a wonderful, wonderful therapist at Toronto Family Therapy and Mediation. And we are just so happy to have her here today, and more happy to have her part of our team. And I do want to remind parents, if you have children who are living in two homes and you're raising them between two homes, you can have a very successful outcome. They can be happy. They can thrive. They can be children. They can have 2 birthday celebrations. What is better? They can have beautiful families on both sides of the family, and they can have so much love, because all children want and desire is love, love, love. Always love them. Do the right thing as parents, and your children are going to thrive. I have no doubt about it. And I think that's it.
Yes,
so thank
absolutely.
you.
And I just thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.